So all this trouble for a split rubber. I guess that's not the first time that's been said before. Hello and welcome back to my garage and the Morris Mine 1000. Now at the last video, right at the end, we had had the MOT and it came back with a failure on the track rod end, which was a bit frustrating. So the joint itself looked okay, there was no movement, but the rubber was split, which is an MOT failure. So that's the job for today. Okay, so coming in on the car, the offending item is here. This is our steering rack coming in here, and this is the track rod end. The failure was purely on that rubber, and there's a bit of a split there, and although everything else might be working okay, that in itself is an MOT failure. Now I could take this apart and just replace the rubber, but that in itself is probably quite a bit of work, and so I've just gone out and bought a new track rod end. Now you'll notice there's a bit of a difference here, whereas the old one, we've got the grease nipple sitting on the top, which forms part of our regular maintenance. This one doesn't have it. So this one is a sealed for life unit. I guess the rubber is probably going to be the weakest part of this, so it's going to last as long as that rubber lasts. So let's get that off and get this on. This is the retaining nut on the end. So I've loosened that, and the next thing to do is undo this. Now this is sort of the old style castellated nut, I'm not sure exactly what its right term is, with a split pin running through it. Now split pin should be straighten it up, pull it out, fairly straightforward. Not in this case. This one, as I've straightened it up, it's literally the ends have just snapped off. I'm trying to pull the other end out, and again it's just disintegrated, so I have very little to grab hold of, very little to push from this end, but of course it's locking that nut in place. So not really sure what to do now. So the first thing I'm going to do now I've removed that split pin is remove this sort of castellated nut. Now I'm not going to take it off completely because I need to, it's loose but that's quite tight in there, so I'm just going to get it down level with the end of the bolt, about there. No, that's not, so I'm going to get a trusty hammer and give it, oh. No, that's still in there pretty tight. Maybe it's time for the big hammer. So after much hammering got me absolutely nowhere, I have purchased a ball joint extractor, or tie rod end extractor. So let's see if I have any more luck with that. Not hearing any kind of movement, cracking or anything. Right, well, that didn't go quite to plan, did it? I'm glad that was facing away from me and not towards me at the time. Oh, it did go to plan. It has worked. Wow. A brilliant bit of kit. I highly recommend. And not that expensive either. So now I can get on with the job. I should have finished a couple of days ago, but no, of course, now the whole thing is spinning. I don't know if you can see that on the camera. As I turn the spanner, everything spins. Of course, why would it be easy? So all this trouble for a split rubber. I guess that's not the first time that's been said before. Great, 10-minute job that's taken hours is finally out. Now, the next thing, if you're replacing like for like, normally I would say count the turns to undo. 1, etc. The one that's going back in is not quite the same. The bar here is longer, so that is not going to work. So I've got to come up with a different plan. Well, my plan was to take a measurement with these, but along with everything else with this job, the batteries are flat. Luckily, it has got a manual measurement there. So I'm going to measure the center point of this with the end of the thread. Now, I'll tell you what's clearer. There's a small indent. I'm going to go from the center here to the indent there, which is about there. Center point here to the indent. So normally, if you're replacing like for like, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here's the 2 track rod ends, and this is what I meant by if I turned it the same number of turns, this one would be further out, which would throw our whole steering out. So, which is why it was important to take the measurement from there to the fixed point, and then when we put it back in, I can do the same there. So before I put the new part on, I'm just going to give everything a really good clean. I'm going to give it copper grease. Might have just put a bit too much in there to make sure that the same problem doesn't happen when I come to do this job again in 60 years. Okay, maybe not me. So first of all, get our lock nut back on. Let's just get that wound up as far as we can by hand for the minute. Yeah, lovely. And take our new ball joint. Obviously, if you were fitting like for like, you'd be counting the turns back on again. But that's not very relevant for me. Let's pop that in there. And let's have a look. So center of here to the, look at that. Absolutely spot on. In fact, it could probably come out a smidge. Yep, I think let's take it out 1 turn. Perfect. Now that is going to be as close to the original setting as possible. And then we can take it down and get it professionally realigned. Let's get the new nut on the bottom. So where the old one had that sort of castle effect to the top of it with a split pin through it, this one is just got a nylon nut, so it's a locking nut all in one. Good. Now, this is supposed to be a unit that is sealed for life, but I don't know if you can see there, but there's some bubbling. As I've tightened that up, there is some bubbling. So, I'm going to have to keep an eye on that. With that truck rod end finally on and roughly in the position it was with the old one, it's time to take it to the local garage and get them to laser it up and make any slight adjustments that might be needed. So we're back in the garage now after getting that all-important MOT pass, which is great news and a job well done, I'd say, even if it took a lot longer and was a lot harder than I was expecting. Just goes to show, always check your rubber. Now, if you're attempting a similar kind of job, I hope you found the video useful, even if it's just to see the kind of things that can go wrong and you can bypass those. So yeah, best of luck with it. And until next time, thanks for watching. Cheerio.